This episode of Between Two Burns is brought to you by The Pipe and Pint. Indulge in the finer things in life with our premium selection of cigars, wine, and pipe tobacco. Visit us at any of our brick-and-mortar locations or shop online at thepipeandpint.net. Mix and match 20 cigars for 10% off and enjoy free shipping on all orders over $150. From Rocky Patel to Drew Estate, we carry all your favorite brands. Must be 21 or older to purchase. The Pipe and Pint, elevating your relaxation experience. Now, enjoy the show.
Well, Ethan, the people have spoken. They've asked us to come back for a second episode.
It feels good to feel wanted.
It feels great to be wanted.
Yeah.
There's nothing better than being wanted.
That's exactly right.
Tell that to my wife.
Yeah,
please.
mine too.
Yeah. So we had a great time the first episode around. We had great response to it, great feedback from it. Over 3,000 views right now on YouTube right now.
Seriously?
Yeah. Over 3,000 views on YouTube
Are you kidding me?
Uh-uh.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's not just you watching it on repeat?
It is not me watching it on repeat.
I may have done that a couple times.
Maybe 2,995 of them, but it's not all 3,000.
That's awesome.
You know? So
that's awesome.
We had a great time. We got to talk about some stuff, which is going to lead us into stuff today. So we're excited for this, but let's kick this thing off right. Let's get into our cigar. What do we got going today?
Yeah, so today we are smoking the Perdomo Habano Maduro, or as they like to call it, the Perdomo Habano Bourbon Barrel Aged. And, you know, I always tell people in the humidor, this isn't a cigar that is going to taste like bourbon. Just because it says that it's bourbon barrel aged doesn't mean that it's going to have bourbon flavors to it. You very well know, since you've gone down to Perdomo and toured the facility before, that they actually age the wrapper leaf in bourbon barrels, and that's how they finish fermenting it. And in my opinion, it gives it maybe a little bit of oakiness, but it rounds out the flavors really well. It may add a little sweetness too, but you know, Perdomo's quality and flavor and everything they do is top notch. They are what we like to call a vertically integrated company. So they make everything. They grow their own tobacco. They make their own bands. They make their own boxes. And you may know the exact number, but over 3,000 people have a hand in making one cigar.
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount of people, but I can tell you it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's a trip that a lot of cigar lovers are never going to get to go on. Totally understand why. But if you do ever get the chance and opportunity, you and I have talked about you and I going down in the spring or late winter, early next year to do the similar type of trip. But Perdomo specifically, I mean, when you bump into Perdomo people, the executives, representation, they talk wildly about quality control, about the things that they have in place when it comes into the construction of every cigar. And it's true. I mean, we saw everything from fermentation and the aging barns, but when you get into the rolling rooms and the quality control and the redundancies that go in it to make sure that you're getting a quality cigar every time, it's incredible. You say this all the time in the shop. One of the things that Perdomo is known for is quality and consistency, right?
Yep, absolutely. You know, they draw test every single cigar. If it doesn't pass the test on their draw machine, they get rid of it. Like they're not sacrificing production numbers or anything like that for the quality of their cigars. If it means they have less cigars to sell, then guess what? They have less cigars to sell because they want to make sure that every single Perdomo that gets sold performs well for people.
And we saw cigars coming out of those rooms when they're doing the draw test, they're doing the next level of quality control. Visually, that cigar looks perfect, right? You would expect that to be in a box, but they take that next step. And I'm sure a lot of other companies do, but they take very much pride in all those steps that they need to take to make sure that thing comes out right. And it's incredible. And they're not concerned with breakage.
Yeah.
Right. Like we're only sending out quality, consistent cigars that everybody expects. We have a lot of guys who buy boxes from us, who they purchase those cigars over and over and over again, and we don't hear problems with it.
Right.
We just don't. We We don't have customers returning them. We've seen some instances lately. One we'll speak about maybe on a different day. Recently, we got some pictures of a lack of quality control.
Yeah. Big time.
And they just take it that next little step.
Yeah.
That you see in high-end quality products.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this cigar specifically, basically almost everything that they do is a Nicaraguan puro. So that means that wrapper binder filler comes from Nicaragua. This is no exception. Like we said, they barrel age the wrapper leaf. This is Nicaraguan Habano wrapper that is fermented to Maduro. And it is an absolutely fantastic cigar. We're going to get notes of coffee, chocolate. There's some spice up front to it, medium full bodied cigar. But there's a big reason that we wanted to smoke this today, and that is because of we wanted to see how its flavors go with other things. Yeah,
we have customers, friends, whoever it is, asking all the time, do you drink bourbon? Do you drink wine? Whatever it may be with these type of cigars, and each one of those things can bring out something a little bit different in every cigar.
Yeah, absolutely. And what really got us thinking about this episode is I had a customer ask me a question the other day, and I want to ask you that question, and then I will tell you how I answered it. So someone came in and asked me, do they blend cigars for different seasons of the year?
Oh, interesting. I would say no.
Yep.
I certainly would never come across or heard that, that this cigar is blended for colder weather, or this cigar is. There are probably people who enjoy certain types of cigars in certain times of year. And that goes with a lot of things. I've got people in my life, friends who, I won't name names, Blake Blackwell, that will not drink red wine unless it's the wintertime.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like, for me personally, it could be a steak dinner on a summer evening, and I'm great with a glass of Cabernet.
Yeah.
Yep. But he's pretty steadfast in it. Like, that's a wintertime thing. And he's got other oddities like that and things like that. I find it very funny and unique. I mean, you do what you like to do, but so I would be flabbergasted to think that anybody has made a cigar specifically for the seasons. Now, we certainly come across cigars that come out at certain parts of the season, right? Yeah. And that are named and or marketed as if they're related to that season. We see things that are come out in the fall that are related to Halloween. We've seen zombies. We've seen things from full moon, things from Viaje. Correct. Yeah. So there are companies who use that for a marketing tactic. I certainly don't think if you ask any of them that if they're blended to be enjoyed in a certain type of climate or temperature. Well, certainly let's be honest, you may be in the winter up north, but there's certainly still a lot of people smoking in the warmth of Florida. So we're not all cold at the same time.
So I answered the same way. I do think that there are probably, I wouldn't say sizes made specifically for the winter. Obviously, Petite Corona can be enjoyed whether you're just walking your dog for 20 minutes or you only want to sit outside for 20 minutes. But I've talked to reps before that say that smaller cigars sell better during the wintertime up north and here, and we see it too.
Yeah, I would buy that as a concept, right? If you don't have the luxury of smoking in your house, you maybe just got the garage because you're not, on the weekends you're not near your cigar shop or whatever it may be. Obviously, we would encourage you to go enjoy the lounge at your local tobacconist and spend some money there. But obviously, people enjoy it the way they're going to. So, yeah, if you're looking to smoke a cigar and you're in northern Michigan and it's 12 degree high, you might be looking for something that wraps up a little bit quicker. Yeah.
But I thought of this as a good segue question to start talking about all of the different pairings that we have today, because I told him the same thing that you just said. For me personally, during the summertime, I find myself smoking more mild to medium bodied cigars. I like a lot more Connecticut's in the summertime.
Really?
Corojo. And then during the wintertime, or once it starts to get a little bit colder, I do smoke stronger cigars. Now, I smoke stronger cigars in the summer too, don't get me wrong, but recently I've been smoking the Tabernacle Havana Seed a lot. a full-bodied, big peppery cigar, and it's just this little bit of cold we got made me want something darker.
Is it like a winter warmer? Do you feel like
basically it brings me in time? Like if it's summertime, I want beer. I want a nooner. I want something a little bit lighter, a Jack and Coke.
Yeah.
But during the once it gets colder during the wintertime, I want a stiff glass of bourbon. I want some red wine. I am not exclusively that by any stretch, but I do think that there are seasons when people find themselves preferring one thing over the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would buy that.
Yeah.
I would buy that. It surprises me to hear you tell me though that it changes for you with cigars.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I still smoke a little bit of everything, but when I evaluate it and look back at it, I definitely smoke more Connecticut's during the summertime than I do the wintertime, and vice versa with the Maduro. So I don't know why. But that brings us to pairings.
Yeah, it's the pairings episode.
Right, it's the pairings episode. And so whether it's, spring, summer, fall, or winter, it's always great to pair something with your cigar.
Absolutely.
And that the reason we wanted to do this is because we get a lot of questions in the humidor. Hey, I have a bottle of X, or I want to pair it with this. What do you recommend? And it's something that, somms with wine are trained to do with wine and food. In wine tastings all the time, we get told this is a great food wine. And with us, with cigars, not necessarily food, it's drinks, whether it be non-alcoholic or alcoholic.
Yep.
And so we wanted to talk about what different things do to the flavor of the cigars, and that's why we picked this cigar. It's got a little bit of a bourbon history to it.
Yep.
And one of the biggest things we're going to talk about today is bourbon, so it just seemed right.
Yeah.
But that's not where we're starting.
No, so we're starting with coffee.
Yep.
Right, we've got the Pipe and Pint Shop Blend, roasted right here in Greensboro. Probably, if not the number one, but one or two top sellers that we do in the shop. Medium roast, medium to dark roast, not quite dark, but definitely great daily driver.
Yeah, we make it every day.
Yeah, we make it here every day. Yeah. It's the coffee you're going to get every single day, basically, when you come and visit the lounge. Anybody visiting our shop, that's what you're going to get. If you want to come hang out, smoke a cigar, coffee's on us. It's great. Now, I will say this. We've got a whole host of things that we're going to pair things with. We're starting off with the thing that I probably enjoy the most having with cigars.
Yeah, and you told me that the other day, and I was actually a little surprised because you're like, when I think of you, you're a wine guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You love red wine. My thought would be you love a good glass of cab with a cigar.
And I do, but I don't know what it is. The coffee itself, I find myself picking up the most nuance from cigars with it. I think it probably goes to the fact, too, that I feel like it's okay to have it at any point in time of the day.
That's fair.
If it was 10 a.m. and I had a big glass of red wine, I feel like there may be some looks.
We should talk to some of our wine reps about that. They certainly do not believe that.
They do not mind coming in and making everybody taste wine at 10:15.
We call them toothpaste tastings for anyone who has never been here and heard us talk about it. But yeah, so coffee. So I am a black coffee kind of guy.
Yeah, I'm a 2-cream.
2-cream.
Yep.
And the thing about coffee and what I look for in pairing a cigar with coffee, or just finding a good cup of coffee in general, I love locally roasted stuff. Obviously, we work with one of the best here in Greensboro in Fortuna. But one thing that I look for is I don't like bitterness in my coffee.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
And that's the great thing about Shop Blend. It's not bitter. It's got a little bit of a sweet note to it. It's a little earthy.
You're going to pick up different things, obviously, with different roasts of coffee and how you take it.
Yeah.
So you and I might very well pick up different things or have things enhanced just based on the fact that I added cream to this coffee, that there's some dairy in it and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so immediately when I took a sip of this coffee, I got a chocolate note.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something I typically get out of this coffee. I do think that is from smoking this cigar.
Yes.
I think that flavor was on my palate, and the coffee was able to bring it out a little bit. There is a little bit of earthiness to it.
Yep.
the great thing about this coffee, in my opinion, is and this can be used in a bad way, but it's not bad in this instance. It's almost there's a little bit of acidity on the side palate.
Yeah.
That cuts through the smoke enough to where you can still taste both of them, but the mid palate where you're really tasting the chocolate and coffee notes of the cigar is enhanced, and it sits on your palate for a long time, which I always find interesting.
So the interesting thing for me is, and we'll see how this plays out with the other things, but with coffee and a cigar together, it almost enhances the flavor of the coffee for me.
Yeah.
More so than it does nuance with the cigar, if that makes sense. Because you're right. When you're having the cigar, you go right to the coffee. The coffee gets very chocolatey, relatively speaking, prior to it. Now, I do think the cigars that I more routinely smoke, when I'm having coffee, I feel like cigars that have a floral note to them have that brought out a lot in coffee. I don't know why that is, or if that certainly could just be my specific palate. I mean, everybody's a little different. I don't think any two people are the same when it comes to this stuff, but that's what I personally get from those things.
Well, I think it also depends on the type of roast with the coffee, right? So a lighter roast coffee typically can have some floral notes to it. I think about our Ethiopian coffee that we have. It is a light roast. It's floral. I don't want to say it's citrusy, but it almost kind of has a little twang to it. And it's got some brighter berry notes, where this is much more, medium to dark roast. It is a blend. It's not coming from a single origin or anything like that. I drink a lot of Guatemalan. Guatemalan has a very chocolatey and almost honey-like note to it, in my opinion. Whereas this has that little bit of earth that the Guatemalan doesn't have.
And we'll have roasts that are intentionally more bitter and flavored stuff. I mean, we sell caramel, we sell hazelnut.
Can't forget Jingle Bell Java.
We got Jingle Bell Java coming for all you fans out here next month. And we even have Drunken Bean, which is I don't want to say bourbon infused. I mean, that's not completely accurate. But they're using real bourbon. They're not using any kind of flavor, and I'm not 100% sure if they put it on after they got to put it on after they roast it, I have to imagine. But I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they're just taking an Evan Williams bottle and spraying it on there or what. But it certainly tastes like bourbon. But my favorite time to smoke a cigar and drink a cup of coffee is on a brisk fall winter morning. Agreed.
After I wake up, I put some sweats and a hoodie on, and I go outside while it's still nice and cool, and I smoke a cigar and I drink a cup of coffee, and I love it.
And I will, we talked about smoking for the seasons, but smoking for the clock is real for me. So if I do have a cigar in the morning with a cup of coffee, it's 99 times out of 100 going to be very mild. Yeah. And it's probably going to be a Connecticut shade cigar.
So it's funny you say that, because I listen, there's a cigar out there for everybody, and I never talk bad about sweet cap cigars, right? And we sell a ton of them. I do not smoke very many sweet cap cigars, but during the summertime when it's hot and I'm drinking a cup of coffee, I love smoking a Tabac Dolce with my coffee.
And that is a cigar, and that type of cigar that will really, really bang off something like coffee.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're
sugar,
I drink my coffee black, and as I'm smoking it, it tastes like I'm drinking a vanilla latte. Like black coffee, that cigar, because of the flavoring on it and everything like that. I mean, it tastes like a vanilla latte, and I love it. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't.
Yeah, I agree. You know what I mean? There's probably some people listening to this who are surprised to hear you. Yeah, that Ethan Bott smokes a flavored cigar.
Listen, cigars are subjective, like we have said before, and we're going to say 1,000 times again probably. And for me and my palate, it just does something for me. I can't do it every day. Sometimes it's a little too much. Sometimes it's a little too sweet. But when it's hot in the summertime, I absolutely love it. And the other kind of coffee, and make a segue here, that I drink a lot of, that I don't think you drink a ton of, is cold brew. Yeah. And I'm going to move my mic real quick. Now, we don't have this open, but we wanted to talk about it real quick.
Throw it up on the camera. There we go.
Oh, yeah, there we go. There we go. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify or whatever and don't have the video, we have just released a brand new cold brew that we are making in store.
Yeah, so this is, listen, we like doing things that not everybody else will do. And a lot of listen, we found this process to be quite easy.
Yeah.
This is not difficult. It's just one of those things we talk about all the time. Progress, not perfection. We just went ahead and did it. You and I talked about it one day. You were bringing your cold brew in that you make at home, enjoying it. And it was kind of one of those things like, man, we found good packaging. We made up some labels for it, and we just brewed it recently. We literally brewed it yesterday.
Yeah,
canned it for the first time today.
Brand spanking new.
So we've already had some sales to some customers who enjoyed it. So, it's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, and the reason that I like cold brew is because if there is any bitterness whatsoever at all in a cup of brewed coffee, cold brew, at least the way that we make it with the blend that we use, it's gone. Yeah. There's no bitterness. There's not a lot of acidity either. The cold brew steeping method, and I'm sure there's some science behind it, whatever it does is it brings out, in my opinion, the sweetness of the coffee.
Yeah.
And I actually, funny enough, I like my hot coffee black. I like my cold brew with a little bit of cream.
So that's what I was going to ask you, if you take your cold brew black, or if you
I do. I put a little creamer in it. But the nice thing about it, like I was drinking some of ours that we made this morning, just straight off the tap, if you will, and it had a great sweetness, like we talked about, that lingered on the palate. And so if you're someone out there that doesn't like hot coffee or doesn't drink a lot of hot coffee, cold brew is a great option. You can jazz it up. You can obviously get some at your local Starbucks or come by your local Pipe and Pint. And
do not go by your local Starbucks. Go by your local Pipe and Pint.
Right.
We ship
Yeah.
nationwide. It may not last worldwide, but we ship nationwide, man. That's right. No free ads for Starbucks here. Come on now.
So cold brew's great, and it would go great with a cigar.
So interestingly enough, this will kind of come full circle a little bit. Very much something if you're the person who doesn't drink coffee in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
If hot weather and hot coffee turn you off, doesn't me. No. I enjoy the cold brew, and since you turned me on to cold brew, I've been having it exponentially more often than I ever did before, and really do enjoy it.
Yeah,
and it hits good when it's hot outside, and you got a big one over ice, man. But if you were that person, like we were talking about earlier, it's got to be cold in the morning or whatever it is for you to have hot coffee. Man, that cold brew.
Cold brew's great, and it can be strong. Like if you're a caffeine junkie and you want to
this is how you get it, man.
This is absolutely how you get it.
Don't blame us if you come back to the shop scratching because you got that junkie itch because you need another round of caffeine to get the day going.
That's exactly right.
Just give them a little taste, a little sprinkle.
First taste is free.
First taste is free. After that, we got the hook in you, man.
Yeah, and before we move on to alcoholic pairings, the one thing I wanted to bring up that you may not know is the one other thing that I used to pair cigars with that I absolutely love that we don't have here tonight is root beer.
So I was going to ask you about that maybe just when we were talking about the alcoholic stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the last time I had a root beer.
Yeah.
I love root beer. It was for me as a kid, root beer was the gateway drug for me to Dr. Pepper. I was on Dr. Pepper for a long time, buddy. It was a lot of them. Yeah. And now I've toned it back to where it's a few a week. And I don't buy it for home anymore. It's like if I'm going to, let's say if I go to McDonald's, I'm grabbing a Dr. Pepper. This is what it is. But the root beer was the gateway drug.
Yeah.
But no caffeine in root beer. So once I got off and onto something else. But you get a lot of flavor notes out of root beer, right? You some are more vanilla-y than others. Some have a little bit of caramel kind of touch to them. But
listen, I have very fond memories growing up, sitting on my mom and dad's back deck, drinking an IBC root beer out of a bottle, smoking a cigar.
So is that on the top? I mean, is IBC the top of the pyramid? Root beer and people is a legitimate thing.
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
no, I know.
You know, A&W, Mug, IBC, Boylston. Like, there's all sorts of boutique root beer brands out there. One of our beer companies, Abita has a root beer, right? Yeah, very popular, very good one, if I remember. Yeah,
very popular.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know why IBC. That's just what I honestly. Actually, I do know why IBC. Let's not kid ourselves here. I grew up in a very conservative household. My folks drank alcohol, but not a lot or anything like that. And when I was under the age of 21, I liked thinking that I had a beer.
Yeah, because it came in the glass bottle.
It came in the glass, just brown bottle, and it just did it for me
on a cold day with pops, man.
Yeah, my mom and dad are judging me right now if they're listening to this.
No, they've been listen, brother. I've met them both. They're judging you for a while now.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, no, I don't know why. And you know, the IBC, like you said, the vanilla, the anise, those notes and cigars it just did it for me. They went really well together. And so I wanted to say that now because we do have plenty of customers that smoke cigars and don't drink for whatever reason it may be, and there's absolutely no judgment from us whatsoever at all, and never will be.
Yeah, and listen, we could spend all night here going through every different style of drink that we could go through to. Yeah. You know, there's going to be somebody who loves cigars with tea. Yeah. With a glass of Coke or Diet Coke or whatever it is. So, yeah, kind of like circling back to last week's episode, whatever you like and helps your enjoyment of smoking a cigar is what you should do. Yeah, so our hope in this is just to kind of, lay some groundwork of some good pairings of what's...
absolutely. And obviously we're going to be talking a lot about alcohol here. So if you're someone who doesn't drink, we hope you keep, listening and whatnot, but we want to give you I wanted to give you a couple different options outside of just coffee. Like you said, tea's great, root beer's great, Boylan's cream soda for anybody local. Larry used to have them in the fridge here, and they were absolutely fantastic.
Hey, shout out to my Burners people.
That's exactly right. The Rock and Rye.
Or Rock and Rye. My Faygo Rock and Rye, some Red Pop, or some Verner's ginger soda, as they like to call it. Yeah. Listen. The only thing I would say is if you're out there and you're listening, and if you're a person who says, I love a glass of milk with a cigar, you're an insane person. So let's put that out there.
Yeah, that's crazy talk.
Glass of milk people are, I'm not going to say it. I don't need the milk people coming after us in their second episode of the podcast.
You employ one of the milk people.
Yeah, we do have one. Yo, that's a good call. He is a milk guy. Golly. He's absolutely, his whole family are milk people.
Huge milk people. Brags about being milk people.
Yeah, I don't need the milk coalition coming after us. We'll be good. We'll be good. All right, so what do we think? First alcohol we want to go to, I think, is wine probably, right?
Absolutely.
Work our way up to the surprises that you have later on in the thing.
We'll talk about that later.
Okay. So we're going to do two different styles of wine. We're going to do a red and a white. We got a Chardonnay, and we've got a Cab.
Yep.
What do you want to go with first?
I think we need to do the Chardonnay first, and let's go ahead and put them up on our barrel up here. Yep. But I want to talk about this real quick because I have told people in the humidor before that white wine and cigars do not pair well together. And I stand by that to a degree. And in the context that I was talking to them about it, I don't take that statement back. But white wine is very dependent on style when it comes and type of cigar that you're smoking for it to be a good pairing, in my opinion.
So I would say, and you could tell me I'm crazy or agree or disagree, there is a larger breadth of range between one style of white wine on one end to the other end than there is in red wine. Would you agree or disagree?
I think so. I think the big thing that I think the thing that comes out in white wine more than it does in red wine is the acid.
Yes. Yeah.
Because when I say I don't like white wine with cigars, I don't like a very acidic Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot Grigio that is just going to be like, I had one today and it almost had the acidity of like a Sour Patch Kid. And the wine was fantastic. But when I'm smoking a cigar, I'm not looking for that flavor profile.
That's right.
And so this wine we picked today is one that bucks the trend, if you will. I think anytime that you're pairing a white wine with a cigar, you have to go with something like a Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because Chardonnays are going to be usually oaked a little bit more. And if they're New World style, they use something called malolactic fermentation in it that gives it that buttery roundness that a lot of people really like around here. Rombauer Chardonnay is kind of what made it famous. That, we always call that wine a butterball, right? It coats your palate. Now, this wine does have a little bit of malolactic fermentation to it, but it has an old world kind of twang to it.
Yeah. So De La Boue, Dundee, Oregon. Shameless plug, but Travis Todd is a winemaker, owner, friend of the program. Great guy, great winemaker. So, I think you can touch on it a little bit, but it's a good point to say that why these do or don't pair well with cigars, given that you may have the wrong wine with a cigar, especially we're talking with white, and it may hinder both your experience on the wine and maybe give you a false representation of the cigar.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, I'm sitting here thinking, this is the one thing that we have to drink tonight that I genuinely don't know how it's going to go with this cigar. Now, if there was any white wine that we sell in there that's going to go well with it, it's going to be something like this, like I just said. But I'm excited to try it because the one thing I will say with Chardonnay is that French Chardonnay, or Chablis, as they call it, is very different than American New Age Chardonnay. Chablis is very minerally. It has a great minerality to it. It's got more acid to it. You're going to get more bright fruit to it. Whereas New Age Chardonnays or American Chardonnays, especially in California, although this is in Oregon, they see more oak.
Yep.
They have more malolactic fermentation. They have a bigger mouthfeel. That acid is cut back a little bit. And that's what I would be, like I said, what I'm looking for when I'm looking to just drink a white wine with a cigar. And normally, if I am pairing a cigar with a white wine, I'm going Connecticut.
Yeah.
I like the floral, the citrus, especially in Dominican tobacco with an Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper. I think about the Arturo Fuente, the Chateau Fuente. It's floral, it's citrusy, it's cedary, it's got a little white pepper, and it plays very well with the flavor notes of white wine.
And that's what I would say is if what you have is a bottle of white wine and you were poking through your humidor to see what you got, if you knew of a Connecticut shade or a milder Habano or something like that you knew had some floral action to it, I think that immediately is probably going to give you an upper level experience with the white wine.
Yeah, but I will say this. I just took a sip and then puffed the cigar, and there's two things that jump out at me very quickly. The oakiness from the cigar and the wine play very well together.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's actually three things. The creaminess of the cigar on the mid palate is great. And then I actually get a little bit of nuttiness up front from the smoke. And that is not something I normally taste in this cigar.
Yeah. So, while I would, you could describe this as a creamy cigar, very much so did it mellow it into that kind of creamy version of it almost immediately, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I'm genuinely surprised. Actually, like, this is two very different opposite ends of the spectrum, but
and already a
really
very
good.
different vibe than with the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think the coffee brought out a bit of more of the spice. I feel like the white wine is bringing a little bit more of the creaminess to it. And I do get the nuttiness you're talking to. Now, I do think that Perdomo, in description of this particular cigar, describes it as a bit nutty.
Do they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think it's right on the box.
Okay.
Don't fact check that. I may just have told a complete total lie right on the podcast. But.
Either way, Perdomo's tobacco oftentimes does have a nuttiness to it, but this is not a cigar where that nuttiness comes out as much as, say, like one of their sun-grown wrapper.
Yeah, sun-grown, you would get more of it for sure.
Yeah, really good. I'm genuinely surprised. And again, this is a fantastic Chardonnay. It's a great representation of Chardonnay. Yeah, it's really good. I think the big thing to remember here, though, for anyone that is looking to pair a cigar with some white wine, is this is what you're looking for if you're smoking something a little bit darker. Yep. If you want something a little bit lighter, you can get your Sauvignon Blanc, you can get your Pinot Gris, you can get your whatever, and smoke something Dominican with it, because
I would keep it mild, right? Keep it mellow, keep it mild. Keep it lighter, because like you said, I don't think any of us would go run to the white wine aisle to pair it up with a cigar under normal circumstances, and get the wrong bottle paired up. You could get the wrong representation. So, but if you're careful with it, listen, again, shameless plug, our tobacconists, yourself included, are great wine guys. So you know how to help that person in store to pair those things together if that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, and one day we may do a full-on wine episode, take a little break from cigars sometime down the road, because we obviously sell a lot of wine and can talk about a lot of wine. But with that being said, cigars and wine are not different. Not that different anyways.
Not that different at all.
It's leaves, berries, it's terroir, it's the way it's fermented, it's the way it's aged, it's, like I said, the region that it grows in. They have very, very, very striking similarities.
And the similarities don't stop just at the overall kind of way that they're produced and everything like that. They generally, and I don't know, this is not going to be, the same for everybody, but we see a lot of times that a certain type of cigar smoker correlates to a certain type of wine drinker.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually the customer who comes in who smokes big, bold, strong cigars has a tendency to gravitate and enjoy big, bold, red wines. Yeah. Cabernets. It serves to their palate. It's what they enjoy. And I think I don't think you would find the person who smokes light shade Connecticut cigars all the time that their absolute favorite wine is the biggest, boldest, most extracted red wine that you can find.
Yeah.
I think generally those things that's not always, and I'm not saying that's always the case, but I do think if you find yourself drinking a certain type of wine all the time that you really enjoy, or smoking a cigar of a certain type that you really enjoy, you can be put in a wine or a cigar, vice versa, that I think matches up your palate.
Yeah.
Like if somebody came to you and said, listen, I love this wine. This is what I drink all the time. I want to have, I want to get into cigars a little bit. What do you think? I think you could take that information and potentially put them in a cigar, at least to start, that matches that type of palate.
So, funny enough, I did this.
Oh, really?
Not too terribly long ago.
Listen, this was not a setup or a bit. I did not know that.
Yeah. With a wine rep.
Okay.
This wine rep really liked more French style wine, and wanted something a little bit lighter. They didn't like sweet wine though, but they didn't like the bitterness and pepper that tobacco had to offer. But like I said, there's a cigar out there for everybody.
Yeah.
So initially we tried a JFR Connecticut. While a very great, mild, traditional cigar, it does have a touch of spice from the Nicaraguan tobacco.
Yep, different representation of a Connecticut than maybe most Connecticut smokers are used to.
They didn't like that. So what I went and grabbed a tobacco, and they absolutely loved it.
Yeah, there you go.
Now they don't like sweet wine, so let's take, that out of the picture. But from a flavor profile standpoint, they liked a wine that was much more light and delicate in flavor profile, whether it be red or white. And so that's what we went with in the cigar. So, and it worked.
Yeah, I mean,
They really liked the tobacco.
They usually go hand in hand.
Yeah.
It's not very often that they completely are at opposite ends of the spectrum, that a person comes in and tells you that their favorite cigar is a Liga Privada T52 or the strongest AJ Fernandez cigar that's in there, something like that.
Yeah.
And then tells you, what I love is a very buttery Chardonnay.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, it it doesn't work out that way.
I'm going through the Rolodex of customers right now,
Yeah.
and thinking about the people that really like strong peppery cigars, and they like big bold red wine,
Right? Yeah,
and vice versa. So you're absolutely right.
and
Absolutely right.
and you can get some peppery wines. I know that doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think about Syrah, especially Australian Syrah. It
Yeah.
has that green pepper note to
Yep.
it. But speaking of red wine,
yep. Let's move on to it, buddy.
yep. Go ahead.
No free ads, but I mean, we're just starting to taste, so this episode may be brought to you by Uber. Just FYI.
That's exactly
so
right.
shout out Uber if you're looking
And
to
if one of
sponsor an
us,
episode.
just goes
we're going
quiet-
to pay for the ride anyway. So.
Yeah, if one of us goes quiet, it's because we're going to get another cigar. Because Jason told me we may need to, and I was like, no, we may not need to. We
Listen,
might. We might.
I would
need to.
never say I told you so.
Yeah.
But I would certainly hint at it.
So the next thing we're going to try is the big, bold red wine that we've been talking about. I need to grab my glass real quick. So this wine is the Prisoner Napa Cab. Now, that is not to be confused with the Prisoner that most everybody knows, which is the Prisoner Red Blend.
The one that everybody just refers to as the
Prisoner.
As Prisoner. Yeah.
And real quick, Prisoner has a very interesting story, as you very well know. Dave Finney was the one that originally started Prisoner back in the day. It was a Zinfandel-based red blend with some other stuff in it. He grew it. It got really big. Someone came to him, said, we want to buy it. He said, okay. And they offered him an amount that he couldn't refuse. And so he sold it. And anytime that happens, there's always a concern.
That's the dream, by the way.
Yeah, it's absolute Spotify if you're listening.
That's the dream.
Yeah. Anytime that happens, there's always a concern if quality is going to go down.
Yep.
And in my opinion, it didn't. Now, Dave Finney has gone on his own path. He has started another wine company called Orange Swift. We love their wines, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. And we're not even talking about the Prisoner Red Blend. We're talking about the Prisoner Napa Valley Cab. And something that I always find interesting with Napa Valley Cabs that a lot of people don't know is for a wine to be classified as Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa Valley, it only has to be 75% Cabernet Sauvignon. So they can blend in other grapes to enhance it or balance out the cab or give better aromatics or whatever. And I was looking at the blend on this, and there's actually some Syrah and Petite Syrah in here, which I love.
Yep.
And if you're looking on the scale of boldness, a lot of people think Cab is the boldest. It's not, though. Syrah and Petite Syrah are even more bold. So this is a wine that is big, bold, in your face, unapologetic Napa Valley. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be overly aggressive by any stretch. I think that they've done a good job balancing this out a little bit, however it is that they did it. But what I'm expecting with this is I'm expecting the richness of this cigar to get brought out. Now, whether that's in the chocolate, the coffee, we're going to wait and see and find out here in a second. But this cigar is already rich. This wine should bring out the richness even more.
And it's important to note a little bit what you just said in regards to the 75%. So when you're talking cabs and you, excuse me, and you've got 100% cab and 75% cab, that 25% we see in a host of different combinations, right?
Yes.
So a lot of times you'll read Cabernet Sauvignon and it will be drastically different than maybe a previous one. As you know, like if I'm having a cab that's 75% cab and of that 25%, it's heavy in Merlot, that's not my favorite way to have it. I'm with you. I like the Cab Franc and the Petite Syrah and everything like that. So you can get a very different cab depending on what that 25% made up is, especially that 25% made up versus 100% cab.
Yeah,
you know, depending on what it is, especially whether it's Napa or Paso or anything like that.
Just like with other things, there's a lot more that goes into it. What kind of oak they're using, how much new oak, how much old oak, the amount of time aged in oak. We had the privilege, and I mean privilege, yesterday of trying Kyle Gellis's wines. And the Blue Monster cab is 100% cab that is aged what has to be for a long time in new French oak barrels, and it is exactly that. It is a Blue Monster.
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out Kyle Gellis.
Yep.
For those who don't know, owns and is the founder of Warped Cigars. Also has the Gellis family domain. Blue Monster being what I would consider the flagship.
Yeah.
And that cab is what I personally love out of a cab. That sucked the moisture out of my mouth so fast, it wasn't even funny. It was fantastic. And that's not a shameless plug because he's a friend of the program as well. You know, we love his cigars. It was our first time getting to try the wine. You know, he's worked on bringing it into the state. Hopefully that's getting down that road so we were able to try it. It's outstanding. Small production. And hopefully in the near future you'll be able to get it from us here in the store. You'll be able to get it on the website if you're not here in the state of North Carolina. But one of the best cabs I personally have had in a while.
Oh, absolutely.
I loved it.
Absolutely. Honestly, it's probably my favorite wine I've had this year, and we've tried some really good wines this year.
Oh, absolutely.
But that bottle of wine is retail somewhere around $300.
Yeah.
This is much less.
Much less.
Much less. And
still produces a great wine.
Yes, absolutely. I mentioned earlier the Syrah and the Petite Syrah are going to make this a little bit bigger, and that's the first thing that I notice. The dryness of it, and dryness is funny. You know, there's a lot of wine terms out there that don't make a lot of sense. Dryness is just the lack of sugar in the wine, right? Shout out Wine Wanker on Instagram, because that guy's, first of all, you should go look at his Instagram. He's hilarious.
Check out Wine Wanker.
But he has a great video talking about all of the silly different terms that the wine world has come up with. So when we say dry and the way that it's sucking our mouth dry, you know, it's the way that the tannins are integrated. The cab is there. It's juicy. You get a little bit of tobacco out of the wine. You get some great cassis, a lot of dark fruit, maybe a little smoke, but I've never gotten that before. So that may be coming from the pairing of the wine and the cigar.
It's 100% pairing. This is a wine I've had many times. It's a good seller here. It's one everybody knows. The first thing I noticed was this smokiness. And I don't mean smokiness as in just like I've had some smoke in my mouth.
Oh, it's like barbecue. It's like smoked meat.
Yes, agreed.
And it's really good. I mean, it's really good. And if you're someone that likes big, bold red wine, this is fantastic. Because I will say this about Prisoner, the red blend. Mm-hmm. It's a little sweet for my taste.
It is me too, yes.
Not that it's bad, not that it's even a sweet wine. The sugar content. Yeah, the sugar content is higher in it. The alcohol might be a little higher in it. I'm not sure, but Zinfandel oftentimes has a little bit higher alcohol because of the sugars.
And that's by design.
Yeah.
I mean, that is how they want that to come out. It's very appealing to consumer to have it with that level of sweetness.
It's just like cigars, right?
Yeah.
We sell a ton of sweet cigars,
Correct.
And while we do not smoke a lot of them ourselves, a lot of people like that. Just like that wine rep who didn't like the bitterness and the pepper of the tobacco, that little bit of sweetness did it for them, and they found out that they liked cigars that day. And that's how a lot of red wine is. Like, we like the bone-sucking, dry red wine, but there are a lot of people out there who don't. Now, I will say, unlike white wine, I would not smoke a mild cigar with any wine like this.
No.
You would not taste it.
It's just going to overpower everything.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we picked this cigar. It's a great Nicaraguan cigar. It's a medium, full-bodied cigar. We knew that the flavors of this cigar would be able to stand up to what we were pairing it with. And that's what you're looking for when you're trying to pair a cigar with red wine. You want something fuller-bodied. Typically, I recommend Nicaraguan, although I'm sure a Plasencia, like 149 or 151 with kind of the exotic spices, or an Aladino, especially Corojo Reserva, kind of the exotic baker spices that you get out of that Honduran tobacco, I bet that would go really well with this. I'm sure it'd probably bring out some kind of like cinnamon kind of note to it. But those are the kind of cigars that you're looking for when you're talking about pairing with a big, bold red wine. Now, what we don't have in here is Pinot Noir. We don't have Merlot. We don't have Malbec. So there's a broad end of the
Zin, Syrah.
Yeah, there's a big spectrum
Yes.
with red wine. And one thing I will say to anyone that may not like Cab, that really likes Pinots, right? A Pinot is a lighter, more delicate grape and wine, and that because of that, you can pair a lighter, more delicate cigar with it.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about this all going hand in hand, right? And
These are two products that are very similar. Construction, quality, the whole 9 yards. They very much mirror themselves in how they're done.
yeah,
How they're enjoyed, the whole 9 yards.
yeah, absolutely. But Prisoner Napa Cab, if you haven't had it, man, it's good. Like I said, it's bigger. It pairs really well with this Perdomo. Exactly how we kind of thought it would. Like, this isn't a shock to me. The smokiness was, but it's
So
just great.
that is my biggest takeaway, is the smokiness from it. It's literally like having some burnt ends or something like that. That integrated smoke flavor is really brought out in that way. Frankly, that's the first time I think I've had that with a cigar.
Yeah, it is.
And I do drink that quite often. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I like wine and a cigar, and will certainly have it. But typically, I do like wine at dinner. So I'm always surprised when I'm smoking a cigar with some wine that I've had before and am familiar with, the different things that it can bring out.
yeah.
Now, one thing that I have had a lot with cigars is bourbon.
Oh boy.
And for those of you who don't know, Jason is not a bourbon guy.
First, hold on. Let's set this very clear from the get-go.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't care if this makes anybody listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, shout out, hit that subscribe button, right? Cringe. A bourbon and ginger is my drink.
Yeah.
If I'm going to the bar, I'm going out. If I'm just generally making a cocktail at home, bourbon and ginger is my drink.
Yeah.
But you and our other guys, shout out to Milk Guy and Opus on the golf course guy.
Yeah.
You know who you are. You didn't appreciate that last shout out. He's getting one again. Okay. You guys are bourbon guys, like a lot of our customers are, right? You guys, the same way you seek out very specific cigars, you want to seek out very specific bourbons.
Yeah.
So this is going to be interesting for me because, like I said, bourbon ginger is my drink. I don't drink bourbon neat.
Yep.
But it may be the numero uno, the top of the cream of the crop when it comes to what people want to pair with cigars.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Bourbon is the number one thing that we get asked about with pairing with cigars.
Yes.
And so I have brought 3 different bourbons, and then we also have a scotch that are all different. And I was only going to bring 2, but I bought 3 for a very specific reason that we'll talk about in a minute. But the good news for you is the first one, you know what it is. You've had it before, and you like it.
I do enjoy it. Assuming we're talking about what you're about to bring out, which is Eagle Rare.
Yeah, it is. Brand new bottle of Eagle Rare.
Wine off here.
Brand new bottle of Eagle Rare. Do you want to pour them up, or would you like me to?
No, you pour it up.
Okay.
I mean, I don't dare do it incorrectly.
All right. Well, give me a second to.
Yeah, you're fine. And when we're talking about bourbon, again, so bourbon's going to very much be like the wine spectrum, right? There is a whole host of different things. Oh, that's a healthy pour right there. Hey, don't you tell me what is or isn't, okay, buddy?
Yeah. Bourbon is very much so just like wine. There's a big spectrum to it, and that is why I brought 3 different bourbons. And I guess I should have left that bottle on the barrel.
Leave the. Nope. And note to anybody listening that our customers know, but the folks who maybe ought to say no, we don't sell any liquor in store, unfortunately.
Boy, it'd be a problem if we
it would
did.
be a huge problem with employment if we sold liquor in store, but that's state-controlled ABC stores. But
yeah. So a few reasons I wanted to bring this. Number one, it's familiar. Everybody who drinks bourbon knows what Eagle Rare is. It's still a little hard to find around here, but it's getting easier to find. The second reason I wanted to bring this bourbon is because it is a low rye bourbon. So on the bourbon scale, the two biggies are you have your regular straight bourbon, and then you've got your ryes. And that all goes down to mash bill and everything like that. Bourbon has to be made with 51% corn, if I'm not mistaken. The other 49% can be whatever else. They use all sorts of other things like barley and then rye, obviously. This is Buffalo Trace's mash bill number 1. It is a very low rye bourbon, and it has a great sweetness to it, which is one of the reasons that I think that you really like it.
Yeah.
It's not, as you like to say.
It's spicy. It's so spicy, man.
Yeah, I left my cigar over here. Let me grab it real quick. But it's got a great sweetness to it. It does have good oak. It's a 10-year-old bourbon, so you're going to get great color on it. You're going to get the oak influence. This and this cigar should be made for each other.
I mean, again, I'm going to say this. I'm not a bourbon file.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But you can immediately smell the sweetness on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's why a lot of people like Buffalo Trace's products. They do have some higher rye mash bills, but their bourbon is very approachable.
Yeah.
Now, it's hard to find, as you've heard us talk about before. It's the most sought-after bourbon on the market overall. But it is really good for what it is. And anyone that's had Eagle Rare before should know what they're going to get. It's consistent, just like Perdomo is. Like it's again, similarities, right? You see Perdomo on a box, you know it's going to be consistent and the quality's going to be there. You see Buffalo Trace on a bottle, you know it's consistent and the quality's going to be there.
So again, we're talking about another product like the wine that very much is like cigars. Mm-hmm. We obviously know that they almost, go hand in hand, but quality control, time, aging of things, it's a very similar process, a very similar way that the people who are involved in it are going to take when trying to make something that's of good quality, right? They have the end result in mind when they're starting at the beginning. Yeah. They're not just hoping it goes one direction.
Yep.
They're working in their mind for what they ultimately would like this to be and going from there.
And just like wine and just like cigars.
And I'm not stalling.
No, I know you're not. They have to let Father Time and Mother Nature take their course.
Yeah.
There's only so much that they can do in the process to make sure that it goes correctly, but ultimately it's left up to time and nature.
Yep.
So, cheers.
Cheers to you, buddy.
One thing.
It's just, for me, and you said this, and I've told you this before, if I was drinking something neat or on the rocks, this is one of my favorite ones to do it. It's immediately get the vanilla for me. And you would better tell me if that's something that you're always going to pick up, or I'm picking that up because of the cigar.
I think it's fairly consistent.
Yeah, fairly consistent.
More of a brown sugar note.
Very much a brown sugar and vanilla vibe to it.
Yeah.
And it gives me just a tick of the spice.
Yeah. So that's actually what I was going to bring up, and something that I wasn't necessarily expecting. Let me say this. When we pair stuff together, it's rare that we're sitting down and truly dissecting it like we are right now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just kind of, you're hitting it and you're going.
Yeah, and it's good together. But one thing that I notice, and this is something that you don't do, is retrohale, right?
Yeah.
That's where you blow the smoke through your nose. When I took a sip of this and let it sit in my mouth for a second, and drank it, that little bit of spice was kind of in my nostrils a little bit, but so was the vanilla. So when I took a puff of this cigar, put it in my mouth, and then retrohaled it through my nose, the retrohale was noticeably sweeter.
Okay.
It had a very much of that burnt brown sugar note to it. The chocolate was a little bit more prevalent. It wasn't just all black pepper. It was much more pronounced on the retrohale, which I'll be honest with you, I wasn't expecting that.
Interesting. So, genuine question that I don't know the answer to. You're at home, hanging out in the back, watching football on a Sunday, and you pour a glass of bourbon. Are you on the rocks or are you neat?
Oh, I'm neat.
Okay.
Yeah, and honestly, that's very much so personal preference. If you ask any Irishman or Scottishman how you should drink your whiskey, no E in whiskey, by the way. That's just with whiskey with just a Y. It's with a splash of water, because the water helps the ethanol alcohol open up a little bit. It allows it to open. I, just like with my wine, like the big mouthfeel that drinking bourbon neat has. If it's like if I put ice in it and it gets watered down, it just doesn't quite do it for me. And I also don't like my bourbon cold. So splash of water I can deal with. Like if I'm drinking some higher proof bourbons like Booker's or some Elijah Craig barrel proofs, every once in a blue moon, I'll put a couple drops of water in it just to see how it opens up a little bit. And sometimes it really does help. But I'm a neat guy to answer your question.
Do you feel like what you pick up or how you enjoy the bourbon changes cold versus
Yes.
room temperature? I mean, a bit like wine, right? Like if you have your red kind of right off of cellar temperature, it tastes, to me, much differently than if you had let it sit out, let it breathe a little bit and everything.
Bourbon, when it's cold, in my opinion, just like red wine, when it's cold, becomes muted.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like it. I'm okay with a splash of water occasionally. I don't like an ice cube unless I'm having a cocktail. Cocktails are meant to be diluted with ice. That is how they're designed. That is how it works. And I'm okay with that because there's other flavors involved. There's old fashioned, right? There's bitters, there's sugars or syrups. There's usually an orange slice or peeler in there. But that's really the only time that I like my bourbon to have any sort of chill to it.
Is when you're doing a cocktail.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing a cocktail. And I will say this too. One thing that I wanted to bring up before we got into this and forgot is the science behind why alcohol and cigars pair well together. And the reason being is because when you're smoking a cigar, the nicotine causes the release of dopamine, the happy drug, if you will, right? It's the happy drug that your brain releases naturally.
Happy drug in here. And
that's right.
We got to dig deeper.
That's right. But it's what makes you feel happy. And when you pair nicotine with alcohol, it causes the receptors to act in overdrive, basically. And so it's literally a metabolic thing where your body enjoys the extra dopamine release that it gets when you're pairing the alcohol with the tobacco. And I just think that's absolutely fascinating.
What is your... So let's use Eagle Bear as a floor or a baseline, if you will. Where do you prefer your bourbon? Do you like it spicier than this, hotter than this, or is this your wheelhouse?
This is my wheelhouse. I like something that has a little bit more of a proof to it, which we will get to in a second.
And what's the proof on Eagle Bear?
I believe it's 90, maybe 90. Yeah, it's 90 on the head.
Do you have anything 10 proof?
I like sweeter bourbons though.
Okay.
I am not a rye guy. You put it on a t-shirt.
Not a rye guy.
All right. The guy who works in Winston, big rye guy.
Big rye
like
guy.
Every Christmas and birthday and stuff, or anytime we would make a bet and I would lose, which wasn't often, by the way. Go Cubs. I got him a bottle of rye. He likes it really spicy. I much prefer the sweetness. But that's also how I like my cigars, fun fact.
Yeah.
I do not like, unless I'm in a real mood for it, a super spicy, super earthy cigar. I prefer Corojo. I prefer Connecticut broadleaf. I prefer things that have a natural sweetness to them over something like Criollo that has a natural spiciness to it.
So this is a lot of the reason that we wanted to do the pairing episode. It continues to circle back through how your palate is across the board. Wine, the bourbon, even the soda, into your cigars.
Yeah. And let's be honest here, you don't like really strong, full-bodied, spicy cigars. You'll smoke them.
I'll smoke them, but that is not my preference. Correct.
Which is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why you don't really like bourbon.
Yeah.
It's that spiciness, it's the aggressiveness, it's the in-your-face aspect of it, and the strength too, right? That's off-putting.
Yep.
And I poke fun of you, but because of it sometimes. But there's nothing. There's nothing wrong with it.
It's supposed to be a safe space. I'm supposed to be able to genuinely talk to you about how I feel about this stuff, and in front of 3,000 viewers,
Oh, man.
You're calling me a baby. I mean,
well, we'll see how you handle this next bourbon.
I knew Eagle Rare was coming. You knew I liked Eagle Rare. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to grab the next one.
I prefer Eagle Rare, as you're grabbing this one. I prefer Eagle Rare with the burners. Again, shout out my burners people out there. So I'm very interested to see how we escalate this thing up for reasons for you to embarrass me in front of people.
All right, so I brought this for two reasons. This is a bourbon from Rare Character that is a single barrel that was only available to members of the Saints and Sinners Club.
So direct tie to cigars here.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of people know, but give us a quick rundown what you mean Saints and Sinners.
Saints and Sinners is the invite-only fan club that Tatuaje has. He does experimental blends, test blends that may never come to market. Does a kit every year that has some variety of cigars, hat, t-shirt, that kind of thing. I wanted in the club for, 8 years. And it wasn't until I met my good friend Mike, who also loves Tatuaje and is in Saints and Sinners, to where I got an invite, and he used his invite on me. And that's the cool thing about Saints and Sinners is once you're in it, you get one invite a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So it is a club that is somewhat exclusive, continues to grow. But Pete, you get to try some cool stuff from the mind of Pete Johnson and Factories of My Father. And they do other fun stuff like this, like barrel picks. Because for those of you who don't know, Pete loves bourbon and Pete also loves wine.
And before we try it, I'm going to shout out Pete Johnson real quick. So last podcast, we talked about it. We were doing the raffle, still are, entire month of October for the Wolfman cigars. All the proceeds for every raffle we sell is going to the Western North Carolina chapter of the American Red Cross. We tagged Pete and we talked to him about what we were doing, wanted to make sure it was okay and everything like that. And not only was he okay with it, went out of his way to donate another numbered box of cigars for us to give away. So if you're listening to this, it'll still be in the month of October. You still have time. But now there'll be 2 numbered boxes we're giving away in that raffle. And I can tell you right now, since the last time we talked about this, the response to us doing that has been, we have great customers.
Yep.
Okay? We know that. We have customers who are interactive, participate in our events, participate in our raffles and everything like that. We've got people from all over the country purchasing these raffle tickets through the website. The response has been fantastic. So we're going to be able to give a good donation to help people who genuinely need it in that area of our state who were directly affected. So shout out Pete for doing that second box. We really appreciate it. And then shout out to every customer who's bought stuff already. It's awesome. There's a million different things people can do with the money. So like we said before, if you're giving $1, you're giving $10, it's very much appreciated. It's all going there. And we really appreciate it. So that's it. Before we try this, and I choked this down, I want to say thank you first. So I appreciate it.
So one of the other reasons I wanted to bring this bourbon is because there has been an influx of these types of bourbon on the market since COVID because there's
What do you mean when you said these types of bourbon?
so that's what I was gonna say. So these types of bourbons are what I call sourced bourbons.
Okay.
So Buffalo Trace has their own distillate. They distill it there, they barrel it there, they age it there, they oversee the whole process. Sourced bourbon is a bourbon that has been bought from another company who has distilled it and aged it, and they are selling the barrels to another company for them to bottle.
Okay.
So it's kind of like other boutique cigar companies.
That's right.
That do not have their own factory. They don't have the setup that Perdomo does. So they go work with someone like Aganorsa, like Pete Johnson has done with my father. They use their tobacco, their facilities, their rollers to then make their cigars. They have the oversight of what it tastes like, of what they want it to be, of what they want their cigar to turn out like, but they're not the ones that are actually making it and distilling it. So this bourbon was distilled in Indiana, which tells me it's probably MGP, which is a massive producer of bourbon, a place that a lot of people source bourbon from. It was aged for 7 years and 10 months, so noticeably younger than what Eagle Rare is. And the proof on it is going to be 117.12. So
What's that now?
yeah. So Eagle Rare is 45% alcohol. This is 58.56% alcohol.
So what you're saying is that I could drink some of this, but also if I need a half a gallon to get home in my truck, I can put it in there as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But the reason I like this bourbon is because the higher the alcohol is, in my opinion, it gives it more of a viscosity on the palate, and it brings out more of the flavors across your palate. And I don't know what the blend on this is. I don't know if this is more of a rye heavy blend. It to me is a sweeter bourbon. It's not super spicy from the mash bill itself. It may be a little spicy from the alcohol, but it's not a rye that's going to be super spicy on purpose.
Okay. I do get. Again, we're doing it for tasting episode, so I'm smelling it as if I would smell wine as well. Right off the bat, you know the proof is higher.
Yeah.
You can feel it in your nose.
Yeah.
Okay. That concerns me. All right, we're going to give this a try. It's got some back end heat to it.
Yeah.
So, the proof, the alcohol content immediately shows itself. Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
I like this. I enjoy this. Definitely more spice to it.
Yeah.
Again, this is going to be a novice to an expert. Okay. If you're the Jordan of LeBron, here we go. So, for those listening, if I noticeably go absent during the bourbon discussion, there's a reason for that. But what I get personally right off the bat is caramel.
Yeah.
Okay. Right off is a very caramely finish to it. It's got heat to it, but not like grip you down. I'm getting that. What you refer to it as it goes down the Kentucky dog. Get a tidbit of that. Yeah. All right. But it's good.
Yeah,
it's very good.
It is. I will say with the cigar, it does bring out the richness, just like the Eagle Rare does. This to me has more of an oaky note to it than what the Eagle Rare does, and I think that is brought out even more by the cigar. Before did you drink it all?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted you to do something for me. You want a little another scoop? Mm-hmm. All right. Hold on a second.
I didn't want to spit it back in the glass on the podcast.
All right. So, I know there are a lot of people out there who don't like high proof bourbon. And you're missing out on some really great bourbons because of the proof. But what I talked about earlier that you can do is put a splash of water in your bourbon to bring out the flavor a little bit more, and it brings the proof down.
Okay.
So what I want you to do is open your bottle of water, and I mean the tiniest little splash.
Okay.
I want to see what that does for you. And
I'm gonna take a sip of it real quick.
yeah, by all means. And that's one thing we probably haven't done enough as we've been sitting here smoking and drinking.
When you say splash, you're talking.
Yeah, that may have been too much, but that's okay. It's okay. One thing that is great when you're pairing things is having a cup of water by your side, by the way. Cleansing the palate is important because at some point everything's going to start running together.
It's the ginger to your sushi.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm curious to see now what you think about that bourbon now that the proof has been taken down on it.
So what I would say, immediately upon drinking,
Yeah.
it elevates the caramel.
Yep.
In my opinion, a little bit. Now that could be the cigar or whatever it is, but drastically takes down the spice.
Yeah.
Like almost like shut the lights out.
Yep.
And like you said, I may have splashed a little too much in there, but so that's interesting. I mean,
so this is what I was talking about earlier with the Irish guys and the Scottish guys. Like when you go, I've never been, but from what I've been told, is when you go to an Irish pub or a pub in Scotland, they have a glass jug of water sitting on the end of the bar, and it's not for you to drink. It's for putting in your whiskey.
okay.
It's to put a splash of water in your whiskey to help bring out the flavors and proof it down a little bit. Because let's be honest here, if you and I sat here and had another 2 glasses of this, we'd be Ubering home. Like, it'd be game over.
Shout out Uber.
That's exactly right.
Gonna need you in that 45 minutes.
That's exactly right. But when you put the water in it, it brings out some of the more flavors, just like pairing it with the cigar, right? It helps enhance it. It helps bring things out. It helps cut back on the alcohol, obviously, and it cuts back on that little bit of spiciness.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's something you'd ever done before, and that's why I wanted you to try it.
It's not. And admittedly, I'm not, like I said, what my cocktail is versus what I, drink and it need. It's just not what I do.
Yeah.
It just never has been. Man's man is
One thing that anybody should know is that Milk Guy can put them down, and when you're drinking with Milk Guy, sometimes you need to put a little water into bourbon to either keep up with him or slow him down. One of the two, whichever.
Milk Guy don't care. No, that's just a fact. Shut up.
Obviously,
Milk Guy don't care. Milk Guy's your guy. That's right. That's right.
All right, so now that we've done that experiment, I have one more type of bourbon tonight, and this bourbon is my other favorite kind of bourbon, and that is a barrel-finished bourbon. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring it is because the influence that other types of spirits can have on bourbon is always fascinating. But two, just like a bourbon barrel can affect tobacco, so can another barrel affect a bottle or a distillate of bourbon.
Interesting you brought that up. So what, honest opinion, I don't know that I personally can tell a difference. But what do you, when you see companies who age tobacco in the bourbon barrels, what do you think that benefit to that is?
So the only one that I've ever noticed a real difference in.
I'll get this closer.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. The only ones I've ever noticed a real difference in were the Camacho barrel aged cigars, and they don't make those anymore.
Right.
They did the Nicaraguan rum barrel aged, they did the bourbon barrel aged, they had the American whiskey one. I think that was a while ago, but to me, it brought out the sweetness. Now, if you ask Nick Perdomo that, I am sure that there is some science behind why they do it. I personally don't know what that is.
Yeah, because it's obviously not to make it taste like bourbon. That is not what they're going for.
This cigar
They're
does not.
doing that.
Yeah, this cigar does not taste like bourbon.
So, I think sometimes you wonder if it's, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way because I don't think it's a gimmick. I think, to be fair, I think some people can use it as a gimmick.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think Perdomo uses it. Perdomo's been doing it from the jump,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, unless somebody,
Yeah. Let's talk
in the
about the
comments,
Buffalo Trace cigar real quick.
So that is my
What
number
really
one
grinds
pet peeve.
my gears.
Grinds your gears. That's right.
Yeah.
All right, go.
The Buffalo Trace cigar is not aged in Buffalo Trace barrels.
That's right.
I don't even know if it was made to be smoked with Buffalo Trace. It's just got the logo on the band.
Yeah.
And now some of the newer stuff that General has put out, like the Cohiba Weller Foolproof and the Cohiba Weller, they did age that tobacco in Weller barrels. Do I think it made a difference? Probably not. Maybe a little bit. Weller's a wheated bourbon, so it's a little bit sweeter. So maybe, but
to put it out there, that is a sales tactic.
Absolutely a sales tactic. And I mean, if you like that cigar, by all means, it's got a good price point to it, but there are better cigars out there to go with your Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
I personally think.
We've had numerous customers ask us about the Buffalo Trace, the Pappy Van Winkle Drew Estate cigar.
So that's the thing. There's two different ones, right?
Right.
And that's what they don't tell you. There is the Pappy family and the Pappy tradition or something like that. One's in a black box, one's in a red box. One of them is aged in Pappy Van Winkle barrels. One of them is not. Yeah. And the funny thing about it, like that cigar, I'm not saying it's a bad cigar. It's not a bad cigar, but it uses Kentucky fire-cured tobacco in it. So they're playing on Pappy being made in Kentucky, using fire-cured Kentucky tobacco, which is a very distinct flavor. Very smoky. Like, if you're someone that likes Pappy Van Winkle, I don't know that you're going to like that cigar. Because the cigar doesn't taste like Pappy.
I'm not sure they could be any different.
No.
Any more different.
No. And,
I mean, that is not what I think the average bourbon drinker thinks that is going to be.
Yeah.
But the marketing of it suggests, and I'm not just saying that because that's my personal belief, we have customers who ask about bourbon cigars.
And really the only one that is out there consistently that I can think of off the top of my head is the Ted's Bourbon cigar.
Yeah.
Which is the old Maker's Mark cigar that's in the glass tube with the red wax on it.
Yep.
That they age over vats of Maker's Mark, assumably still. And it's a Dominican, more mild cigar that takes on the flavor of the bourbon.
Yeah.
That is a bourbon cigar. But just like, listen, love Perdomo, can't say enough great things about them. But let's be honest, they changed the packaging on this and put bourbon on the box when bourbon became hot, when they've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a thing before, but because bourbon's the hot ticket item, now it's a thing.
Hey, listen, we're not dogging the sales tactic. Listen,
no, it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. But when we educate customers on it, there's a responsibility of to make an understanding of what is or isn't the bourbon flavor. Right?
Yeah,
because if you ask for a bourbon cigar and you got Ted's Bourbon versus this Perdomo, it's not the same.
They're drastically
what you're looking for.
It's a white wine versus a red wine.
That's
it's
right.
a rye versus a bourbon. Like, I mean, it's that different. So yeah, that's the grind my gears segment of the day, because it frustrates me to no end, because now it is just like bourbon where it's deceiving marketing, right? Like there are examples of that in bourbon and wine and every other industry out there.
It's no different from anything.
No, absolutely not. But like you said, it is our job as tobacconists to educate our consumers on that. And when you get asked that question so much, it makes you realize how many people out there are deceived. Like, I can't think of a better word for it. Like, they're incorrectly assuming, and I get why, that these cigars are aged in those barrels and are flavored with that bourbon and are going to taste like that.
That's right. They immediately, the very first reaction is that it's going to taste like bourbon. That literally the leaves have been soaked in bourbon. It's just not the case.
No, and let's be honest here. There's not going to be a cigar out there that tastes exactly like bourbon, because it wouldn't smoke.
And I'm not sure you want a cigar that tastes like bourbon.
No, that is why we're doing this.
That's not a real thing. Like, that's just not going to be. I'm not even sure the Maker's Mark. I haven't smoked it.
Yeah.
When I say Maker's Mark, it was the Ted's Bourbon.
Ted's Bourbon cigar. Yeah.
That even tastes like bourbon.
Yeah, and you get a little bit. you get a little bit. And like, I've made my own bourbon cigars. We used to make them here back in the day.
Yep.
It adds a subtle sweetness. You get a little bit of oakiness sometimes. Sometimes it can get a little bit of spice, but like, you're not going to get the full effect aging a cigar in a humidor that's got, bourbon sitting in it, a glass of bourbon. It just doesn't, the science isn't there.
And I just don't think you're going to get the experience. If you want bourbon with a cigar, have bourbon with a cigar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I understand that's not always convenient. Do not drive down the road with
Do not try and drink bourbon in the pipe and pipe with your cigar. Do it at home.
Yeah, that's right. That is an at-home activity.
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, back to the bourbon.
Yeah.
So
we got off track.
the reason that I brought this is because this is a finished bourbon. So this is barrel seagrass. This is the silver bottle. They have 3 different levels. They have an entry level. They have the silver, and then they have a gold.
So this is not the gold. You did not bring the gold.
I do not have the gold. I cannot afford. This is actually rye whiskey. So something that I don't typically like. That is aged in rum, Madeira, and apricot brandy barrels. And it is 16 years old.
Wow.
Okay. So the proof on this one, get ready, big fella, is 133.34.
So that should be illegal.
Yeah. 66.67%. Now, the reason that I like this, like I told you, I don't like rye. I don't like spice. But the combination of barrel aging that they have done brings out the sweetness in it, and it adds some characteristics to this bourbon that you don't typically see. So what I would tell you, try it initially with your cigar. Let me know what you think. But then put a little splash of water in it, because I've done the splash of water in this before, and the flavors that got brought out, I won't tell you what I thought they were. I want you to try it.
Okay.
Were fantastic.
All right. Like you're laughing at it. Right off the bat, just smelling, you know the alcohol content is high.
And listen, the initial palate, it gonna be spicy, like real spicy. But the finish is fantastic. But go ahead.
Your bourbon's gone bad. It's not your bourbon has spoiled. I was going to tell you this, but wow.
Spicy. But is the spices from...
All right, so the spice, I don't mean to interrupt you,
No, go ahead.
but we're going to go back to something that happened to you and I.
Yeah.
Your birthday,
Yeah.
you gave me, tell me the bourbon that it was.
It was Willet 9 or 10 year single barrel bourbon. Shout out Opus Guy.
Shout out Opus Guy who brought that for your birthday.
It's very nice.
Opus Guy is always doing awesome stuff.
Yeah, awesome stuff.
We love Opus Guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Except for when he's trying to make fantasy football trade. He'll know exactly what I'm talking about when he listens to this episode.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the single spiciest alcohol I've ever tried in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to be funny. It was funny in the moment because it legitimately caught me off guard as to why and how it was so spicy.
Yep.
This is not in that same way.
Yeah.
This, while being definitely higher proof, definitely, and you can tell me if I'm crazy, it could be I just drank too much. This is not as spicy as the last one.
So I think that's the influence of the brandy barrels.
So that's what I was going to ask you. If it is the mellowness of those barrels that it's been done in, because, and I don't mean it's not as hot, it's just not as intensely spicy. And I can only assume that that's done intentionally with how did they finish everything.
So here's the thing. This bourbon is 16 years old, and after 16 years, you've lost a lot of what they call angel share, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the water content out of it has evaporated over time, and that causes the alcohol on it to go up. Now, what most companies will do is they'll proof it down using water to get it to the proof that they want to. They obviously didn't do that with this. This is a barrel proof bourbon, but I wanted you to try it because it is so different and unique. It has a sweetness to it that I really like. The stone fruit in the finish
So,
in my opinion, is brought out even more by the cigar, or vice versa. Like there's a fruitiness, a dark fruit note coming out of the cigar now that I've not noticed before from drinking this bourbon.
and I don't know that I could personally pick out stone fruit and stuff like that, which I know you guys can, but I will say that I pick out a fruitiness.
Yeah.
So it was not necessarily there.
Yeah.
It's good.
So I want you to do the water test again.
The water test again?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want you to try the water test. And for those that are listening, this is a more expensive bottle of bourbon. There are a lot of great barrel finished bourbons out there, and a lot of different kinds of barrels. There are maple syrup.
Did you just want me to drink water, or do you want me to...
No, I want you to put the water in.
I'm going to drink water.
Yeah. They maple syrup barrels, apricot brandy barrels, amberana barrels, like Starlight Distillery is one of my personal favorites that is doing barrel finishing right now, and it's kind of a fad. The funny thing about barrel finishing is, if I'm not mistaken, you aren't supposed to put the age statement on the bottle. There's some weird legalities with it. I don't know what they are off the top of my head after having a few classes, but I appreciate what they do to the bourbons because I enjoy, like I said, I just enjoy the different flavors. Like the Starlight, they call it their cigar batch. I don't really know where that name came from, if I'm being honest with you. It does go well with the cigar, but it's a thing. Their cigar batch is aged in amberana barrels, which gives it this beautiful cinnamon nutmeg note, and it is like Christmas in the glass. It is absolutely fantastic.
You get that type of spice is what you're saying.
Correct,
Right?
just from the finishing of the bourbon. And this one is finished, obviously, in 3 different barrels. So I'm curious to see what you think now that you've put a splash of water in it, to see if you're picking up any different notes.
So what I would say, just like the last one, the Saints and Sinners bottle, adding the water immediately enhances the sugar note. So the caramel and the vanilla accentuate versus the spice that you get when you don't put it in there.
Yeah.
I will say this. So the last bottle, I preferred it with the splash of water.
Yep.
Okay. I like the way that caramelized and everything like that. I preferred this one without it. For me.
Really?
Yeah. Now, listen.
So I obviously do too.
Yeah, of course
I am surprised.
Yeah. What don't you like about bourbon? While I'm finishing this glass slowly, what's something you don't care for? The type of bourbons, you obviously said you're not a rye guy. So what kind of the different type of bourbons that, like the flavor notes that you don't personally care for? This is obviously subjective. Like what you might say you don't care for, the next guy, that's their favorite thing.
Sure. Yeah, so, and I'll say this about rye. Just like every cigar has its time and place, so does rye. I don't prefer rye neat, but I will drink it, and I've had some really good ryes thanks to the guy in Winston who has basically made me try. Had some really good ones, enjoyed the spice. What I don't like in bourbon is young bourbon. So young bourbon is going to taste like one of two things. It is going to either taste like moonshine, because that's basically what it is, that's been in a barrel for a year or two, or it's going to be incredibly bitter. It's going to be incredibly acidic. It is going to almost have a rancid note to it. And that goes the same for really old bourbon. So bourbon has to be aged in new American oak barrels, right? So like they can't call that bourbon technically because it's been aged in other types of barrels. When you put go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you. This bottle particularly, they cannot call it bourbon.
Any finished bourbon technically can't be called bourbon because a bourbon has to be only aged in new American.
So what do they
barrels.
refer to it as?
A whiskey.
An American whiskey?
Yeah, American
okay,
whiskey. Now, most of us, still call them bourbon. Like, we don't really care. It's just that is literally a legal thing by definition. But the problem with really old bourbon that is not done well is that eventually all you taste is oak.
Right.
So one that, and this may be a little divisive, that I've had that I did not care for was Elijah Craig 18. And I love Elijah Craig. I love Heaven Hill. I love Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. But Elijah Craig 18 to me tasted so much like oak that it was almost just like licking a tree. Like it was not good. The sweetness was lost. The complexity of it was lost.
Would you know that because you're a tree licker?
I am not a tree licker. I've never licked a tree. I've had some
Well,
maple syrup before.
Don't judge until you do it, though, bro.
I didn't know you were a tree licker.
I'm not a tree licker. I'm just saying, like, don't confuse the people who are listening to this podcast by referring to what I don't need is a bunch of people out here licking trees.
Yeah, we don't need any tree
that's
lickers
what
out here.
All right, you've had an experiment for me.
Yep.
I had an experiment for you.
Oh boy.
Okay. All right. Break your Eagle Rare back out.
Okay.
Okay. It's just a little scotch in each glass here. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you put it all I mean, I'm really gonna get it now. All right, there we go. That's enough. All right, it's not burners. Okay.
Oh, hot dog! We're doing
Yeah.
a ginger ale.
Doing a ginger ale.
I like it.
Schweppes.
That's your least favorite.
It's my least favorite ginger ale, but is what is in our lounge refrigerator. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna let the master put my ginger ale in my bourbon.
There you go.
All righty. Bourbon and ginger.
I feel like bourbon and ginger was America was built on. I'm just saying.
I agree with you.
Okay. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
I literally just spilled it on myself.
I remember my first time drinking bourbon.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, do you see the nuance now?
Oh,
Do you see how it tastes?
Listen.
Do you see how it tastes exactly like ginger ale?
fun fact: bourbon and ginger goes great with this cigar.
Bourbon and ginger goes great with a cigar.
Yeah.
Now, Schweppes is my least favorite ginger ale. I haven't tried them all. Burners, I made you try Burners. Yep. You enjoyed the Burners. That's an up north thing. It's a Yankee thing. It's a Michigan thing.
Yeah.
But
So the one thing I will say about this, let's go back to this pairing thing. For some reason or another, this brings out the earthiness in this cigar. I wasn't expecting that. I've had bourbon and gingers before, thanks to you, but I've never actually had a bourbon and ginger with cigars. Now, if you want to talk about Jack and Coke with a cigar, we can talk.
So that's the thing. Shout out to anybody who knows us. Anybody who's spent any time in the casino with either of us, which is just you and I.
That's exactly
I'm
right.
a bourbon and ginger guy. You're a Jack and coconut guy.
Yeah.
When we are losing money playing
Specifically
video, roulette,
losing
and craps.
That's exactly right.
We don't win. Shout out Opus guy.
Shout out of the sky. That's right.
All right. I'm gonna. We've got more to taste, so I'm gonna dump the rest of this in the coffee cup.
All right, I'll do it
make
with
such
you.
an algorithm here.
I'll do it with you, and
Yeah.
we'll, while you're getting it, I'll let you pour it. The last thing that we're going to taste tonight is scotch. And I admittedly am not a big scotch guy, and I know that Jason isn't either. Now, the thing about scotch is that there are 3 different types of scotch. There is Speyside Scotch, which is what we're going to be tasting tonight. There is Highland Scotch, and then there is Islay Scotcher. And each of them have a varying level of peat. And peat is a type of moss that is grown over in Scotland. And what they do is they actually they malt the barley with the peat. And that peat is what gives scotch its smokiness. And if you have a Speyside Scotch, which is what this is Aberlour 12-year double cast. The Speyside is going to have more of a sweetness. Huh?
I was just gonna give the stats.
Sorry. It's going to have more of a sweetness to it, where an Islay Scotch like Lagavulin 16 is going to be much more peaty. It's going to be much more smoky, and I don't like that flavor.
So here's the one thing that I know about scotch.
Yep.
I don't like peaty scotch.
Yep. I don't either.
And that is no offense to anybody who likes peaty scotch, because there are things that I like. You know, like I like bitter things.
Yeah.
You know, in a lot of different varieties of different things, alcohol and otherwise. I like bitter tasting things.
Yeah.
I just don't do super peaty smoky, because you can get a peaty scotch or anything that tastes like a campfire.
So to me, peaty Scotch tastes almost like, and this is going to sound weird because I've never tasted this, but I hope you know what I'm talking about. A Band-Aid. It has that.
In what world?
Have you ever opened a pack of Band-Aids?
No, don't try to. First of all, you both of us have had enough to drink now to kind of freeball the rest of the podcast. In what world has anybody, including myself, listening to this podcast, tasted a Band-Aid?
Nobody, and I haven't either. I'm just saying it tastes like the way
you think a Band-Aid tastes?
Have you ever smelled a box of Band-Aids when you open it?
Yeah.
That's what it tastes like. It's like
It smells the way Band-Aids taste.
It's like this very phenol, like medicinal Band-Aid.
It tastes the way a Band-Aid smells, is what you're telling me.
It's like cilantro being soapy.
Are you, interesting enough,
I'm a guy.
So am I.
Can't do it.
You know, it's a small percentage of people. This is off track. But Band-Aids, first of all, the smell of the Band-Aid is kind of not a bad smell.
Yeah, but the taste of it's not. I mean, it's like when you smell something and you taste it.
Where's milk at? Somebody's got to get us a Band-Aid for you to eat.
God, I'm not eating a Band-Aid.
Eat a Band-Aid.
But yeah, very campfire. It's the same, we sell pipe tobacco here. It's like Latakia in pipe tobacco. It's very smoky, very campfire, very medicinal is my point with the Band-Aid.
Oh, again, we're coming back full circle, right?
Yep.
If something like Latakia, or we were talking about earlier, Kentucky Fire Cured.
Yeah.
If that is your palate, which there's nothing wrong with, that's something you're going to like.
Yes.
Generally speaking.
Yep.
Again, we never to try to paint it, but that is something you're going to like.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like, you don't have a tendency to vary from one to the other.
Yep.
Your mind, your brain, your palate gravitates a certain direction.
Yeah.
It just does.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I'll say, I've never had this before, but I'm excited because with Scotch, I like Scotch that is aged or finished in sherry casks.
Okay.
Just like this one. This one is, I think it's finished in sherry cask. And so what that means is that they actually age the Scotch in some other type of barrel. And then they finish it for some period of time in sherry cask. And that sherry cask brings out the sweetness of it. And that's what I really like. So I'm excited to try this. If I was pairing a Scotch with a cigar, this is what I usually recommend to people, but it's also because it's what I like. Right? I find that very peaty and smoky Scotches can overwhelm the flavor profile of a cigar.
So that's what I was going to say. It feels like that's going to overpower. You want something that's going to complement each other.
Yeah.
Not a cigar that's going to dominate what you're drinking, and not a drink that's going to dominate the cigar you're smoking.
Correct. And the one thing I will say, though, is that I have had some Scotches that are very peaty. I'm thinking of the Lagavulin Nick Offerman Charred Cask Edition. I bought that bottle for a buddy of mine for Christmas because he likes it's a Nick Offerman.
Like literally
like
Nick
Nick
from Parks and Recreation. Nick?
Correct. It's a Ron Swanson.
All right.
Ron Swanson like Lagavulin. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. It's an 11-year-old Lagavulin, and it's a heavy char barrel. So when they char the inside of the barrel, they put a heavy char on it. I don't like that typically, but I have a friend who likes that, and I bought it for him for Christmas, and we opened it up and tried it, and it almost had this like sweet candied bacon note.
Interesting.
I couldn't drink a lot of it, but it was really, really good. And something like that would probably go really well with the cigar. It's when you get into what we call, or I call, the peat monsters, where all it is straight smoke, that it can become overwhelming. But if you like that, and you like that umami, bless you, like that umami note, smoke something that is San Andreas Maduro, smoke a Connecticut broadleaf, smoke something Nicaraguan that is going to be darker, because it can complement it. Like, we're not saying don't do it by any stretch, but it's much harder to pair a cigar with something like that because the cigar can get overwhelmed. Does bourbon make you? Are you allergic
bourbon
to
makes
bourbon?
me sneeze. Easy. So, interestingly enough, I don't drink scotch. I had this bottle. I brought this bottle. Excuse me. It was given to me. And Aberlour specifically, the only reason I know about it is Pipe and Pint originator and founder, Larry Christopher, who's we all love, as you know. I asked him years ago, listen, I got to buy a bottle of scotch for somebody for a gift. Give me a recommendation. And that's exactly what he recommended.
So Larry bought me one time. Larry was always known for going to the ABC store and finding random stuff and buying it for either himself or other people. And Larry bought me a bottle of Aberlour Abunda one time, which is a cask strength scotch. And I loved it. Like, I wasn't a scotch guy. Still, like I said, not much of a scotch guy. It was great. It had a beautiful green apple note to it that was really nice. And so I'm excited to try this because that's the kind of scotch I like. You know, Jimmy Buffett, R.I.P. Jimmy, has a song where he talks about the old man that drinks his Johnny Walker Green Label each day. I like Johnny Walker Green Label. Maybe it's because of the song. Maybe it's because it's good. But it does it for me.
Probably the song.
Well, it does it for me. Okay? Jimmy was a legend. Okay? But anyways, to the pairing.
We haven't even drank it yet.
Yeah.
Like, literally, because you and I have had too much to drink already.
Yeah, so
it's fine.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. So a little smoky. So one thing I do when I'm drinking,
much more smoky than any of the bourbons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. One thing I do when I'm drinking, just like what I do with my cigars, is after I take a sip, I exhale through my nose. Because it brings out some different flavors. And yes, it's smoky on the palate, but when you breathe through your nose after taking a sip before exhaling through your mouth, you really get the smokiness in your nose. And so I'm curious, I'm going to do this back to back real quick, of what this is going to taste like after, and then retrohaling a cigar. So I'm going to do that real quick.
Piece of mom, also great content.
So interestingly enough, doing that, there was a slight floral note on the retro.
It's definitely more floral, just even from the start, than any of the bourbons. Less spicy, more smoky, but more floral than any of the bourbons that we tried.
Yeah, incredibly floral. I'm sure the floral note's coming more from the scotch than it is the cigar.
Sure,
but it's an interesting thing because it's not something that I've tasted yet, and that's the point of pairing. That is the point of pairing.
Yeah, everything's going to be different, right? Like everything we've tried to this point is going to bring out something a little bit different from the. So there's one thing in all of this that we've done so far that's not changed. That's the cigar.
Yep.
Right? We've smoked the exact same cigar the entire time we've done this, and we get different things every time. Part of that is what we're drinking, certainly. But part of that is what each one of these things brings out in the cigar. And shout out to Perdomo for this cigar. This cigar has been great through each and every one of these pairings, right? There's not one that I would say it does a disservice to the cigar, right? We are drastically different from the white wine to where we're at with this scotch at the moment, right?
Yeah.
But the cigar has not fallen off. It's not been. There's nothing when you say we smell it, like, oh man, that's not what I like.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I can't believe I'm saying this, even the ginger ale.
The ginger ale is fantastic.
It is fantastic.
You're now a bourbon and ginger guy instead of a Jack and Coke guy.
Don't you blaspheme. Even the ginger ale brought out something different in the cigar. It brought out an earthiness that was there the whole time, but we didn't notice because we didn't have the enhancer. And I think that's the important takeaway from this episode is everything that we have paired with these cigars has enhanced it one way or the other with a certain flavor.
It is. The cigar has brought out something in each and every one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, like, no hyperbole here. Like, it's been something a little different with each one.
Yeah.
Like, we go back to the white wine. It was very floral with the white wine, and it gets very thick as we've moved up. Right?
Yep.
It's gotten more caramely, more spicy as we've gone up. Now, part of that is each respective spirit that's going up, but the cigar enhances each and every one of those. So I guess a lot of the point is, and we're not done yet, but everything can be enjoyed.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to have a bourbon with a cigar. You don't have to have a wine with a cigar.
Yeah.
Right? If you enjoy drinking Diet Coke on ice with your cigar and you're getting something from that, that's great.
Yeah. And we could have made this episode even longer, and this has been a longer episode, by bringing in beer, by bringing in rum, by bringing in tequila, gin. The world is your oyster when it comes to this stuff.
Certainly.
And, you know, beer was one that we talked about. Beer is such a fascinating thing when it comes to cigars, because we always talk about wanting a big barrel-aged stout with your cigar, but you can pair a lager with a cigar.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with it.
It's not terribly different than wine.
No.
Beer is not terribly different when you're pairing. You can move along the spectrum. You can go from a very light lager all the way up to a very heavy imperial stout that you would get with bourbon or scotch.
Yeah.
And it's going to bring out different hints of everything, right? You may be a gin person, and gin is a very botanical spirit. You're probably going to pull very botanical notes from a cigar. Not in a bad way, but it's going to open you up to those different things.
Yeah, you know, I've got this gin called Monkey 47.
Listen, what you do at home is...
Anyways, it's a gin that has 47 different botanicals with it, and this has me interested to smoke a Plasencia 151 with that gin, because that gin, and so the Plasencia has all these different exotic spices with it, and I'd just be curious to see what else gets brought out from that gin that has 47 different botanicals. Like, the point being is the world is your oyster. You know, the Cuban people, if we want to talk Cuba real quick, Cuban people drink rum with their cigars. Havana Club rum, the rum of Cuba,
absolutely,
is, first of all, fantastic. It's better than cigars. We'll talk about that in another episode. But the sweetness of it and everything, just, it's absolutely fantastic. And there's a lot of great American rums, Barbados, Jamaican. The point I'm trying to make here is that just like cigars, just like wine, depending on where a spirit is made, what it was made with, who did it, what the conditions were like, it has its own character. And when you pair it together with something like a cigar, it helps the character of both of them to shine. It is an enhancer for both of them. It's not making one better than the other. You get to taste things that you've never tasted before in both of them if you pair them together.
Absolutely. So no matter what you enjoy, you can enjoy it with the same cigar. We've smoked the same cigar through all this stuff, and it's been enjoyable the entire way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is obviously we're getting to drink some great wine and spirits and coffee and whatnot, and it's been very, very enjoyable. But it's also been a really fun experiment, because if I'm being honest with you, all of the knowledge that I have about pairing just comes from things that I oftentimes have experienced myself. And you sent me a great video last night. The Meat Church guys, shout out Meat Church, went to Buffalo Trace to do some barrel picks, and the guy that went with them through the barrel age process talked about the best part about opening a bottle or smoking a cigar being able to share it with someone else. And so being able to do this together has been even more fun, because you may taste things that I don't taste. I may taste things that you don't taste, and together we're able to experience it and talk about it, and it's just fun.
So that, I mean, exactly what you say brings the entire episode full circle, right? No matter what you do, no matter what you like, whether you're a wine person, whether you're drinking your root beer and smoking a cigar, or you're drinking bourbon, you're drinking scotch, or anything like that. It's more about what you're getting out of the entirety than it is about what the two individuals are.
Yeah.
Right? If you and I are hanging out and we're having a beer and smoking a cigar and watching a football game on the TV, that experience of doing that is going to be enjoyable. Right?
Right.
Like, we're going to enjoy what we're doing versus the individual pieces of it.
Yeah.
Now, you can get nuanced about anything. You can get into the scotch and you like the peanuts. You can get into the bourbon and you like the spice. But the reality is, what we sell and what we do with cigars, the community of it, the experience of having the cigar with each other, us doing this podcast together. We probably had a scotch too much to drink.
Sure.
That's fine. Makes the episode better.
It does.
When one person has inebriated versus the other, because the other one is better at doing the one thing than the other. All right. There's the Jordan of anything, and there's there's the Gilbert Arenas of anything. But what you do with these things is what makes it enjoyable.
Yeah.
Who you do those things with makes it enjoyable, right? This was not an episode of, or an experience, or a lesson in, you should do this versus this. This was hey, this is what you could have out of this versus what you might not. This is, if you like this, you may like the other thing. Yeah. We talked about that with the white wine. What you like in that is going to direct you to something in the humidor that makes that experience better.
Yeah.
Right? Like you may not like a super bold cigar. The odds are it's just not going to be a super bold wine. It's not going to be a very bold bourbon. We talked about this. Bourbon and ginger is my drink. Drinking bourbon straight is not my drink.
Yeah.
Right? But when we get together, we have a good time doing those things. And that is the communal experience that everybody likes about cigars.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing I want to say about any of this, whether it be a bottle of wine, a bottle of bourbon, a cigar, is that whenever someone made it, when they took the time to craft it, because all of these are handmade products, they made them to be enjoyed. They didn't make them for you to sit on and brag to your friends about.
That's right.
And look at this thing that I have. They were made to be drank or smoked and enjoyed. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm not knocking anybody that does that. But if you have that cigar, or if you have that bottle of scotch or bourbon or wine or whatever that you've been holding on to, now's the time to do it. Now's the time to drink it. Now's the time to smoke it. We're not promised tomorrow. Enjoy it, because the memories of the bottle and the cigar are going to last forever. The product is not going to.
That is 100% accurate, right? You will drink through a bottle, you will smoke through a cigar, but what you do with those things, you will remember.
Yeah,
it's fine. Great example. We've talked about Milk Guy.
Yeah.
We've talked about Opus Guy. Those two are going to Miami together next weekend. Milk Guy may not come back alive. I'm not gonna lie. He may not come back alive. He doesn't know what he's in for.
Yeah.
Opus Guy is treating them, and it's fantastic. But it's the experience of doing those things together.
Yeah.
We talked about it. We had a discussion between you and me and a couple of customers of what we like doing and what the best sporting event we've been to. Yeah. And we talked about it, like the experience of doing those things is what's important.
Yeah.
Right? You can buy a bottle of bourbon and then resell it, and you do that number. But what you do with those things is what's important.
Yeah.
The experience you have with it, the experience you have with the cigar. We get calls multiple times a week about, hey, do you have this? It's about a boy, or it's about a girl. Because somebody's had a baby, somebody's getting married, somebody had a very special experience that they want to commemorate with a cigar.
Yep.
And that's important to them to do that. And that's what brings kind of the cigar community together, is those very particular experiences that you really only have that one time, right? Like you only have, I mean, listen, I've got one child, you have one child, but we have friends that have multiple. Like, you only have your first one time, right? You only get married, your first marriage one time. Shout out to anybody who's been divorced, like who's been remarried. But the first time is a special time, right? Like when you have that first baby, you do those first things, graduation, jobs. Like, we have all these people, bachelor parties, who talk about these certain particular things, and they commemorate these things with cigars. Right? And the odds are, I would bet 99 times out of 100, these things are paired with some sort of spirit. Wine, bourbon, scotch, whatever it is. Like, the way you experience those things is what you will remember forever. Not whether or not that had a certain note to it or anything like that. So the experience of it is what's important. What you remember forever when you do these certain things is what's important. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, when you had did you give out cigars when you had your baby?
Yeah. Well, no, but that's because most of my family doesn't smoke, so I gave out bubblegum cigars.
Bubblegum cigars. But you did that because you wanted to remember that spot, right? When you had your baby, you wanted to remember that spot. So it's what we all do when we have these things. So it doesn't matter what you enjoy it with, as long as you enjoy it.
Yep, that's exactly right. And at the end of the day, bringing this full circle, that is our job. Our job is to make sure that you have the most enjoyable experience possible. So if you come into one of our stores and say, what will pair good with this? It's our job to make sure that we put the best cigar that we think in your hands that will make that experience enjoyable. And the good thing for us is that a lot of times there's no perfect answer, right?
No, everybody's different.
Yeah, everybody's different. It's like you said, it's about the experience.
Yeah, don't feel that you're not getting something out of something that's not there. Like what you enjoy is perfectly fine. Right? Like we talked about last time. What you do with it and the memory that you make with it is completely and totally fine.
All right.
Great episode. Sponsored by Uber, because I'm going to need one to go home.
That's exactly right.
All right. So we got good stuff coming, right? We're thinking about some roundtable stuff. We've got some interviews coming.
Special Halloween episode.
We've got a Halloween episode. Scary things that might happen to your cigars.
Can't wait for that one.
Totally your idea.
I appreciate that.
Your third bourbon's gone bad. Just FYI. It's spoiled. It's too spicy. It's too hot. But I appreciate it. Good to see you, buddy.
Enjoyed it, as always.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, man.
See you.